Well, I went to China this past year and on a delegation, and we were the last ones out of China before they shut it down due to the virus. And I was in there there was people like me. I was with Cynthia McKenney, but there was some Marxists there, and different people were talking. I point blank asked the question, "What do you do about?" Because they were talking about Marxism. I said, "Well, what do you do about all these people that don't agree with you? Are you for re-education?" He essentially said, "Well, we have to do something with these people," and and I said, "Well, are you going to kill them?" And he just sat there and kind of nodded his head. He said this in front of the whole people. My kids totally freaked my kids out. He essentially, in front of 30 people, admitted that something needs to be done with all these people, and these are prominent journalists that you would see on shows, being interviewed, doing articles.
This is sort of the left-wing hive mentality. They act like a pack, and that's the page that they are on. That's the music they have played from, the sheet of music that they've used through the history of communism. That's why communism has killed 100 million people in 100 years
Or more.
or
Mm-hmm.
more.
Well, keep something in mind. Who's the senior advisor to Joe Biden? None other than Ada Dunn, whose favorite philosopher was Mao. Mao that killed 100 million of his own people. Mao that buried students and professors. I think 57,000 of them alive. He buried people alive. Americans can't even understand and get their mind wrapped around these kinds of people.
Well, yeah, and I interviewed. I just did. There's a movie called Finding Courage, where it was done by Swoop Films, and Kay Rubachek was one of the. She was a producer and a director on that, and they interviewed a few dozen former and current Chinese communist officials. And they were talking, they call them the Walking Dead. And they said, she said it was so disturbing that she had to sit on it for a while. And then she decided to go back to it and write this book and get it out there. But us in the West can't quite understand how these people think. And they were trying to get us to understand. And they call it the Walking Dead because they have to separate their humanity from what they're told to do and how they're told to act. And the sad part is they had a rich culture before Mao took over, and their culture was decimated. These people are victims.
Well, this is what happens. Remember when the wall came down? We were doing business and right after that in East Germany, and still do. And I'm still struck by the dead eyes and the lack of joy in these people. And it's very different in the western part of Germany. But these people have been affected generationally.
Scarred. Yeah, it's so emotionally scarring because of what they're told and what they have to do, and then what they have to hide. They have to push their whole culture and everything. And we live and we thrive based on our past and our culture, and they have to put that aside.
Well, they're trying to this is really it's almost is like an EMP. It's a civilization killer. They're wiping away our history. They're wiping away teaching freedom, or the Constitution, and our universities. This is a brainwashing operation of America. I have to tell you one thing, Sarah. We exposed that the Obama White House gave an exclusion order of those who are allowed to be wiretapped under surveillance and those who are not. And they told those running the hammer that they were not allowed to be surveilling Hunter and Joe Biden.
Oh, geez.
Yet Brennan and Clapper did it anyway. You need to
Oh.
understand that Dennis Montgomery handed over the evidence of the illegal activities that Joe Biden and Hunter were doing, working for the Chinese. And also, a piece of information that's really stunning is that the Obama White House handed out 1,200 preloaded phones that worked. They were Blackberries that worked off of the hammer with a pin-to-pin closed system that they could communicate. And because it was off of the hammer, it could not be hacked. And beyond that, those phones also had access to the hammer vault, where all of the secrets that they had taken were stolen. Now, what do you think all those people that had those special phones and access to U.S. secrets like our SAP, like, let's say, if you understand what SAP is, remember it was exposed in Hillary's emails that she had 200 SAP bits of information on there.
Can you repeat what that means so that listeners who aren't...
SAP is a special access program. And so understand that means one of two things. It's our missile, our nuclear silo locations, those sorts of top secrets, plus all of our live intel. And it's the New York Times reported. And so within 1 year of Hillary Clinton being in office, every one of our Chinese intel, our intel in China, were killed, captured, tortured, and murdered.
Well, and that shows what type of people we're dealing with here and how serious this is. I mean, that's Biden to a nutshell. And it also shows how important it is that this election gets righted